Hey, this is Joe. In this video, we're going to do a little touch-up on a chip on the Fiat. What I did initially was I used my slide hammer, some hot glue, and one of these little pull tabs to pull that little dent out a bit. Now what we're going to do, and I'll put a link in the description to that video, where we use the slide hammer, the hot glue, and the little tab to pull dents out. Well, first of all, we've taped this off so you can easily see where the dent is. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set up a pencil, some 2000 grit sandpaper, and then we're going to come in and very easily around this hole and sand this down so we can apply some touch-up paint. Let me take you over and show you how we're going to set up that pencil eraser tip, show you how we're going to sand this down, and then we'll apply some touch-up paint. We've taken a paper punch, some 2000 grit sandpaper, we've punched out some holes in the sandpaper, and we've taken the little round sections out of the bottom of the paper punch. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take some 3M adhesive, spray the back side of the little circles. We're going to spray the top of the pencil eraser with some of the 3M adhesive, and then we're going to stick that onto the sandpaper, and we're going to then go over and do some sanding on that little dent and the paint chip. So let's get this set up, and then I'll show you how we're going to do that. We've taken the pencil eraser, and now we've stuck the sandpaper on the end of the pencil eraser. Now let's take this over and do a little sanding on that little chip on the car. Now we're going to take the eraser and the pencil, and we're going to lightly sand the chip area, and with two purposes. One, to scuff up the surface so the paint will stick, and the other is to try to remove some of the paint around the chip, so when we fill it in we can sort of like feather edge the edge of the paint chip. And then when we smooth the paint on, when we go ahead and sand that with a 2500 grit paper, we can blend the surrounding clear coat with the paint that we're going to add to the chip. So we're going to rinse and repeat this. I'm going to do this off camera. I don't want to waste up a lot of your time. But we're going to keep on sanding that chip to try to feather edge the chip, some of the paint away from the chip, so when we apply the new paint it will blend in a little easier. We won't want to have so much to sand on top of the paint to blend that in. Take your time and gently sand around the area there. We've cleaned that up pretty good. We went just a tiny bit outside of the actual chip area, and that's so we could feather edge that a little bit. Now what we're going to do, mix up some clear coat and some touch-up paint, and using a touch-up tipped applicator we're going to apply some paint. Then we're going to hit it with a heat gun to speed up the drying process, and we're going to take as many applications as we need to fill in that chip, and then we're going to let it set and cure for quite a while, maybe a day. Then what we'll do is come in with some 2500 grit sandpaper and very gently smooth that surface down to blend it in and feather edge all around the area to the rest of the surrounding yellow paint. At that point then, after it's cured for a little while, then we'll take some very fine polishing compound, and then we'll blend that in, smooth that out really nice. So let's go ahead and mix up a little bit of paint. The touch-up paint I'm using is from ReadyCarPaints.com. On the Fiat Yellow, there's actually three components. There's a PYT1, a PYT2, and a clear coat. So what I'm going to do is mix equal parts of all three. One of the videos I saw on YouTube was a professional car painter. He says he always mixes the clear coat in with the other paint and then applies that. If you put the clear coat on separately, then you could have a buildup issue. So he mixes all three together. So we're going to take and shake these up really well. There's a little mixing ball in the bottom of each vial here. So we're going to mix them all up, put them in a little container. ReadyCarPaints.com even provides touch-up brushes, and their instructions are you use a little bit at a time. You always don't put too much. You let it build up in stages. We're going to hit it with the heat gun in between coats, and what will happen then is the paint will shrink down as it starts to cure, and we'll do several applications until we get it up just slightly above the surface of the existing paint. We've mixed up equal parts of PYT1, 2, and clear coat, and we have a tiny little application, not really a brush. It has a little piece of fabric material on the tip. So what we're going to do now is very gently take some paint and very lightly dab that paint into the hole. And again, it's going to take several applications, so we're going to let it build up slowly and let it cure in between coats. What we want to do is hit it with the hair dryer or heat gun, but you do not want to get it too close to the paint. When I was doing some testing, I got it too close on a piece of cardboard and it bubbled the paint, so you have to be very gentle. Let's go ahead and apply a little heat, but not real close. You want to cure the paint, but you don't want to bubble it. I found it was really hard not to let the paint build up really thick. Maybe I was a little impatient and not letting the paint cure enough in between coats. But we're going to go ahead and let it totally cure overnight. It looks a little dark. I'm hoping during the dry down stage it will lighten up. But tomorrow we're going to do a little wet sanding, try to knock that down, see what it's going to look like. If it doesn't work out, we can always lightly sand it down and try again. This is the first time I've tried this with touch-up paint. So this is a learning exercise for all of us. So let's come back tomorrow after this paint cures, see what we can do, and maybe we can salvage this. Maybe we have to start over. It's been 2 days we've let the paint cure that long. You notice it's starting to dry down a little bit, but it's still bulging a little bit. Also, the color is a little bit darker. That's because after 11 years, the car paint has faded, so this is a bit darker. So we're just going to have to live with that. Let's talk about some tips now. Even if we would have put the paint on a little thinner, we would still have to sand down through the newly added paint. And if you put the base coat on first and then the clear coat, when you would sand that down smooth with the 2500 grit paper, you'd knock off the clear coat on top. So the tip number 1 is we mix the clear coat in with the base coat. That way it's evenly distributed, and as we sand down through the newly added touch-up paint, we continue to get clear coat all the way through. Now let me show you another tip here. Again, I put the paint on a little bit too thick, but even if we didn't, let me show you another trick. There's still going to be a little paint sticking above the existing clear coat. So let's set this up. I'll show you tip number 2. Here's your second tip. Because the paint is bulging up, just a little bit. Even if we put the paint on properly, it would bulge a little bit, but not a lot. So get yourself your paper punch, get a thin piece of paper, punch a hole about the size of your touch-up drop there, and tape that paper onto the car. Now we can take a piece of 1000 grit sandpaper and very gently sand down through that little paint bulge. Most people, when they're doing touch-up paint, they don't do this, and then what happens is you run the risk of sanding down that little bulge and sanding around on the original clear coat. You're going to sand right through that clear coat. So this way we can take that little paint bulge, sand it down almost completely smooth, remove the paper, and then what we can do is then with the 2500 grit, we can finish sanding to where that paint, newly added paint, is very smooth. Then we can take our buffing or polishing compound and we can polish that and finish out the touch-up paint. So let's get some 1000 grit sandpaper now and let's sand this down. Now you're noticing I'm going to sand with just a piece of sandpaper and my finger, and that's because we have everything around the surface of that little paint blob protected with the paper. After we get this sanded down fairly smooth and flush and we remove the paper, we definitely want to use a sanding block, either a rubber pad or a regular sanding pad, and then that way you won't get any indentations in your surrounding clear coat from the original paint. And again, we're using 1000 grit, and we're going to very gently take that paint bulge and sand it down smooth with the paper. And it's going to take time. 1000 grit is pretty fine, even though the original or the final grit paper we're going to use is 2500. You want to take down that bulge with 1000 grit, otherwise you're going to be sanding all day. If the paper tears a little bit, that's fine. If it starts to tear a lot, then just get yourself another piece of paper, punch another hole in it, and keep on sanding till you get that paint blob down to flush. I can already see that the touch-up paint is starting to smooth out. So what I'm going to do is, you don't need to sit here and watch me sand for 5 minutes. So I'm going to get this down smooth and then come back in a little bit and show you our progress. After a bit of sanding, we now have that touch-up paint fairly smooth. Again, look at the color. It's a little bit darker, but again, after 11 years, the original paint is a bit faded compared to the new touch-up paint. But again, I don't have 1,000 different base coats to do blending. This is just a DIY solution. So the goal here is to fill it in so it won't rust anymore or expand. If the paint tone is just a little bit off, and that's good enough for me. I just want to get this down smooth, buff this out with some polishing compound, and then put a little bit of a ceramic coat on top to protect it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my sanding pad. I'm going to still use a little bit of 1000 grit to work around the edges, and then we'll switch to 2000 and 2500 grit to take it down all around in the clear coat so we can then polish that out. When I was doing the sanding, I didn't realize I had the paper on upside down. So I was wondering why in the heck it wasn't dragging a little bit. So I flipped around the paper and we got it down now pretty flush. So now what I'm going to do is pull the tape, and we'll get the polishing compound, do a little polishing. Again, it's not 100% perfect. The color matching between the faded paint and the new touch-up paint is obviously there. But again, I'm not really too concerned about that. It's going to protect the car. It's going to look somewhat nice. So let's pull the tape, do a little polishing. I like to use a little bit of polishing compound, and Adams makes these really nice microfiber covered sponges. But if you don't have one of those, you can just use a regular microfiber towel and do that. So we're going to put a little bit of compound on the sponge here, and then let's do a little polishing. And let's get another microfiber towel and a little bit of a detailing spray, and we'll check that out. And we'll use a little bit of detailing spray here. And we'll come in and look on an angle. And it looks pretty good. Again, from 10 feet away, it's really hard to see the touch-up. There it is right there. I would imagine on camera it's really hard to see. I can see it here. Again, it's a slightly darker color because the original paint faded over 11 years. But again, it's nice and smooth. It's polished out. If you can get some touch-up paint, you could probably take a piece off the original car, go to a body shop supply, and they could probably match some touch-up paint for you, so you'll get that faded color. Again, that probably costs you a bit more money to get a custom touch-up paint made, but again, for what I'm looking for, it's good enough for me. Again, if you have a classic show car or something, a newer car, and you wanted to get an exact match, you could probably go that route and get it a perfect match. But again, for what I'm looking at, and this is a daily driver, so it's good enough for me. Again, hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.